Terrarian in the Dungeon, Chapter 10B, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. Seshat hummed in thought, and her finger twirled across the rim of the small jug of water we were drinking out of when she spoke. It came out with a husky tinge, and Seer, still working to clear off the table and clean up the dishes she dropped and broke, listened in as well. "And how you go about seducing me, my dear adventure?" Seeing everyone else loudly drinking and finding this to be kind of exciting, I leaned forward unknowingly as Seer herself was only miming her brushing motions to pick up the shards of the plate she broke. "Well, for you, I imagine a fun little date could be going to look into high-quality materials, and taking them home to work together would be fun. But no, for a romantic night for you, I would take you outside Rio on one of the casino boats that heads down to Melon, and we could travel down the river at night watching the moonlit riverbank pass by us," I said, verbally painting a romantic picture of a trip of going down the Nile River with my goddess. "You better not excite me anymore, Jake, or I will bite my claim onto you," she huskily, and I saw her eyes tighten and locked onto my shoulder like a cat about to pounce. "Food's here," Seer practically yelled as she hurriedly split us apart by pushing the server tray across the table loaded with a hearty amount of food. "Girl, you ruined the moment," Seshat complained, folding her arms under her handful-sized breasts, and grumped before she took the fork and stabbed the fish right in the eye as she looked at Seer, who only smiled innocently. "Oh whoops, the restaurant is so loud that I didn't really notice," she said, once again lying through her teeth, but with how the kitchens were behind Seshat's side of the booth, she couldn't have seen her coming, to refute her words. "Whatever," Seshat muttered, and then waved Seer off, who was still wearing her smile, as she bounced away over to the blonde form of Rio, who was working to clean off the bar. "Anyway, as nice as such a date with you sounds like, you need to level up a few times before you even think about barking up my tree. I want a relationship that will last a couple centuries, not get with someone that will grow old and die in a handful of decades," Seshat said mercilessly, and I had to respect that she was undoubtedly at the minimum many thousands of years old. "Fair enough. To be fair, I want someone that can give me children anyway," I said, shrugging, making Seshat's eyebrow crop up in interest before she nodded happily, obviously having her own thoughts about my statement. After a couple more minutes of enjoying our food, I was already feeling stuffed, and Seshat herself managed to eat most of her large baked fish, so she dropped a few coins on the table before she stood up. "All right, Jake, come on, let's go home together," she said, and for a moment I didn't understand, while she specified why she said about us going home together. But as I stood up, Seshat took my arm and pulled it flush against her chest as we walked towards the exit of the restaurant. But in the stretch of time, as Seshat walked to the exit with me, I could almost feel the world freeze as Seer, who was working on another table between us and the door, looked up, sensing our motion. Both Seer and my goddess made eye contact, and I felt Seshat's arms pull my arm against her chest tighter, and I could feel her smug feline pride with her tail flowing side to side as we walked past the frozen form of Seer, whose face was a stitched-together rictus of a grin as she bade us goodnight. As we made our way home, Seshat spoke up with a chuckle. "Yeah. That girl is going to be in trouble. If I didn't know that she was a human, I would have thought she was a goddess of the dead with how she was looking through you and trying to see your soul or something." Seshat then stretched, throwing her arms behind her and having her thin satin clothes pulled taut against her frame before she came back, and her amber-slitted eyes locked onto my own blue ones. "Jake, as I said, she is trouble, so I admit you were right, let's just stay away from there," Seshat muttered as we headed back home in silence, as I held her hand. But even as I laid into bed, all I could replay in my head was the moment Seer looked into my eyes and her own gray ones dilated at the sight of me, and I knew deep down that my outsider soul was going to be an oddity for her. That's not including whatever Terraria had done to my soul either.